single new curtains. No more of that stupid chair spin curtains. What did he have? Something like giraffes or elephants on those curtains. Such a stupid guy. But anyways, in the last video, I showed you all of my guitars. After all, I am M.A.M.Z, the greatest guitarist in the world. But you already knew that. What many of you bastards might not know is that actually I play a lot of different instruments. After all, I am the most apocalyptic musical zeitgeist. So for today's video, let me show you everything else that I have here in my studio. You know, to me, playing a different instrument is like a completely new experience, a whole new challenge. It's like climbing a new mountain. Speaking of mountains, I have an album coming out sometime this year. It's gonna be the greatest album ever. But I digress. Anyways, I do have a lot of instruments, like probably over 100 instruments. Doc will be keeping account for me. So I'm just gonna go around the room, starting from my studio table, and show you guys everything. And you will want to stick around till the end, because I will be showing you some instruments that are so precious that you cannot even buy. The only thing you can do is look up to me, see how great I am, and hope to someday be as great as me. And for that, you'll need to practice. But I've got my lucky bastards on Patreon covered, because there are a lot of backing tracks for you to practice with. Remember all the music from the last video? All those backing tracks are on Patreon. Head on over to the link in my description. And you would want to stay inspired, and make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notification bells so that whenever an M.A.M.Z video drops, you will be the first to know. This is 2026, the year of M.A.M.Z. So let's get this channel up to 10,000 subscribers. So the very first thing on my studio table that I need to show you is, of course, the computer. As you can see, I've got a photo of Jimmy Page over there. But this is a Lenovo Legion. I believe I bought this somewhere in 2021. And as soon as I open it, I click on Ableton. Nothing really much to say about it, besides that it's a good workhorse and works for most of my needs. The second thing that I need to show you is my audio interface. So let me zoom in on that. So this is the Focusrite 2i2 first gen. I think I bought this back in 2015, and it's been like over 10 years in fact, so not a single thing has gone wrong with it. So it's a beautiful interface. I will probably upgrade it to something with more inputs in the future, but it still works like a charm. And next up are my monitors. So these are the PreSonus Ares 3.5, I think. I bought this somewhere around 2023-ish, I think. No complaints, I just needed something to listen, and I don't care too much about the quality because I make good music. That's where the quality comes from. But these are just there for me to listen back to all the amazing music that I make. After that, I've got a mic that I use on a daily basis. So this is the SM57 that I've been using since 2021, I think. It has always been like a dream microphone because I've always seen people use and talk. I've heard people talk about the SM57 and felt like this looks much more sexier than the SM58. So I don't know if there's any sound difference. I don't care if there's any sound difference because I sound good. I don't need a mic to make me sound good, and this mic does the job. Now next up, let me start talking about MIDI controllers, because I love MIDI controllers and I've got a lot of them. So the very first MIDI controller that I ever got was this. This is the Novation Launch Key Mini. I think I got this in 2021. When I got this, like, it really opened up so many doors for me, and I could do so many things that I didn't know I could do. Like, I fell in love with playing keys and even the pads. Like, this is such an amazing thing. People say this is a glorified mouse or a glorified keyboard. Yes, they are right, but it's so well glorified. It really changes the way, like, you think about music, you make music. So if you don't have a MIDI controller and you make music in a DAW, get a MIDI controller, and get the MIDI controller that works best with the software that you use, because I use Ableton and this is built for Ableton. So I don't use this as much, and I've also like broken the E key like twice already. I've broken it once and I got it repaired. When I broke it the second time, I really didn't find worth it getting it repaired because I got other stuff, but I still use it for drumming. The 2x8 layout is perfect for finger drumming. Also, a handy record and play button it comes in very handy, especially when I'm making videos. I still use the capture MIDI function. So even though like I don't use it as much as I used to, like I still do use it for few different things that are almost essential, and I can't get rid of this. Now the second MIDI controller, which you've seen me use a lot, is this big boy over here. This is a 61 key Arturia Keylab Mark II, I think, yes, Mark II, and amazing keys, and it's got these faders that come in really handy for both for mixing. Like I do all my volume mixing with this. I don't pan a lot, but if I need to, I have those, and even simple stuff like just selecting tracks. This is so useful for that. Play and pause. I've got the play and pause on the launch key as well, but this has it as well. Changing views in Ableton, that's another. And the undo button, the most important button, undo. I don't use the pads as much nowadays. Like I used to use them a lot, but then eventually I realized the pads on the launch key mini is better, but I do use the pitch wheel and the mod wheel a lot. That's the Arturia Keylab, my main MIDI controller. Now after this, I did get one more MIDI controller, which was the Korg Nano Key, but I got it mainly for Darjeeling. So it's a tiny MIDI controller. Maybe Doc will put some images of it, but it's a tiny MIDI controller which I bought and I left it back in Darjeeling because every time when I go to Darjeeling, I don't want to carry a MIDI controller with me. So, but then my most recent acquisition and probably my most prized possession right now is this Innovation Launchpad Pro. I've been loving this thing. The whole idea of playing music on pads is so amazing. To be able to customize this to whatever I want, to scale modes, even the session view, like to have 8x8 session view, like it's coming in handy like way more than I thought it would. And I think this is one of those pieces that kind of sits silent in the studio. They are flashy, but then more than playing it, I think I use this more to control, because like especially having the session view on a physical device, that is the biggest advantage that this has. And also I love to play on this, like especially I love playing on the scale modes and trying out ideas which are really not possible on a MIDI controller. Besides that, I've also got stuff connected to my computer, stuff like my sustain pedal for the Arturia Keylab. Then I've also got a couple of expression pedals, one from Nectar and the other one from M.A.M.Z, which is again connected to the Arturia controller, and I can use it to pretty much control anything on Ableton or any of the VSTs. Besides that, I've got a few extra random stuff on the table. Stuff like my hard disks, I've got a couple of them, a notepad because we need to write stuff, a pen and a pen stand, earphones, of course, the keyboards, what people think is a MIDI controller, a mouse, a metal slide as well as a glass slide, and then of course my water bottle. I keep my tablet here sometimes. Right now I'm reading the plan off for this video on this tablet. I've got a couple of clocks, one that just tells the time and one tells both the time as well as the temperature. Then of course, you know that I'm an Ableton user, so of course we gotta have our plants, but this one is a real plant. Now I've also got a lot of stuff. I'm not gonna be able to go through all of them, but I'm just gonna show you some of the good and the important stuff. I've got a Zoom recorder which does come in very handy. Sometimes it's very unreliable, but when it does come in handy, it is very handy. I've got a spider capo here which I hope to someday be able to use, but the day hasn't yet come. Of course, I also have regular capos. This is my regular capo and this is my 12-string capo, which is a lot stronger and works better on 12 strings. Then I have lots of little stuff that are useful for prepared guitar stuff. Stuff like a fidget spinner, more slides, dice for randomization, another mic, the DJI wireless mic, which I'm using right now. And it's full of lots of stuff like winders and card readers and audio splitters and data cables, but lots of stuff here, chargers. Then on the lower rack, I've got more stuff, but again, let me just show you the important stuff. This was my old mic. It's just called M.A.M.Z, which I got used from someone else in Shantiniketan. In a pinch, it works. But this is my main mic. This is the AKG P420. It's a condenser mic and it's bidirectional. I think I've only ever had to use it once, the bidirectional option, but it's a good mic which captures pretty much everything, but it needs to be used only in quiet environments. I think I also use it for sitar and guitar and stuff, like depends on the setup of that song. But yes, this is one of the best mic I have around. I also got a lot of strings over here. So I am, after all, the king of the strings. Electric strings, acoustic strings, classical strings, sitar strings, a lot of strings. There's also a lot more other stuff like more guitar cables, straps, stuff for guitar and other instruments maintenance. But let's head on over to the next section. It's a different day. I'm so rich and I have so much gear that I couldn't finish telling about all of them in a single day. So here we are in day 2, shoot number 2, and today I'm gonna show you some stuff from that guitar rack. I have shown most of the guitars on the previous video, but there were a few which I intentionally left out, and today we are gonna be talking about some of those. First up is my beautiful bass guitar. This is a Cort Action PJ. It's a bass guitar which has a P pickup as well as a single J pickup and volume knobs for each of them, as well as a tone control. I think I got this in 22 or 23, 22 I believe, and it's the first bass guitar I have ever owned, and it's been sounding lovely ever since. Next up is my electric sitar. So this one does not have a brand. I bought this somewhere around 2012, 11, 12, 13, something like that, and it's an electric sitar because it's got some piezo pickups and it's got an output. It does have a volume and a tone, but I don't think these work too well. I usually prefer miking this because it's got a decent enough acoustic sound. The biggest advantage is it's very lightweight and doesn't have a big gourd. I think it is a hollow body, but I got it from Calcutta for about 10 or 11,000. But yeah, that's the electric sitar. Then I have a couple of stuff that I am borrowing. This is a Mohan Veena. Basically, it's a Hawaiian guitar, but then it's got Indianized with all the taraf or the sympathetic strings, and it's tuned like an Indian instrument. So here's the Mohan Veena. Then finally, I've got this oud over here. It's supposed to be an 11 string, but currently it's at 9 strings. Next up, I'm gonna go into my rack over there and show you some stuff from there. First up is this Iktara, which is a bowl instrument. I do have an Iktara back in Darjeeling, which is a lot smaller and much more compact. I do love the sound of that much more, but this was something that was gifted to me by a student. This is another bowl instrument. This is called the Dotara. Dotara technically means 2 strings, but it has 4 strings actually. Another beautiful fretless instrument, and this was something I got back in Shantiniketan around 2012, 2013. I got a lot of instruments, a lot of bowl instruments all together, and started taking some lessons. So I would say for quite some time this was one of probably my top 5 instruments, and I would still say it is one of the most beautiful instruments I have. This is another bowl instrument. Now it looks like a drum, but it's actually a string instrument. This is called a kamak, also called by other names like Anandalahari and Gabgubi. So it's got a couple strings coming out of it, and we hold it like this and stretch the strings. We play it with a pick. Now this is actually the second kamak that I've had. The first one that I got with the Dotara and all the other instruments in the first set. Next up, I've got this ukulele. I think it says soprano ukulele, and it's from a brand called Cadence. It's a local brand here in India. Then I've got a couple recorders. This is a soprano recorder. This is the first recorder that I got back in 2017, and I think this was the first instrument that I got in Bangalore, probably before the acoustic, the Fender guitar as well. But yeah, it plays beautiful, and it played so beautiful that I decided I want to get another one, and this one is a much bigger one. This is an alto recorder. I think this kind of really got me into wind instruments a lot more, because I was able to play these a lot better than my previous experiences with wind instruments. Speaking of wind instruments, I also have this tin whistle, which I think I got after the recorder because I loved playing straight blown rather than side blown. My experience before with flutes were with side blown flutes like that, and I never had a good experience with those. But this is something I've had really good experience blowing it straight. So tin whistle. Then speaking of my previous experiences with wind instruments, I did have a lot of side blown flutes, but I also had this one end blown flute. I've lost all the side blown flutes because I never had a good experience with them, but this is something that I did have a good experience with. It does not play too well now because it's pretty old, but I've still kept this one piece. I think I had like more than 5 or 6 back then, but now I just have this one and another one over here, which is a slide flute. And again, this also does not work too well, but it can get things done in a pinch. Both of these are bamboo made, and I got both of them in Shantiniketan. Also in my studio, I have a lot of books. Now obviously I can't show you each of them as I have a lot of them, but let me show you some highlights. So the history of rock music has got all the amazing history that rock music has gone through. Definitely one of the best books I have ever had, and it's definitely something that is one of my prized possessions. Autobiography of one of my earliest heroes, Bruce Dickinson, the legendary singer from Iron Maiden. It's a beautiful book. It deals more with his personal life even outside of Iron Maiden, but it's an interesting read. I wouldn't say it's one of the best books ever. There were some other books, autobiographies, that were good, but since he's a hero of mine, definitely had to have this book. Another hero of mine, and I haven't even finished reading this, is Bob Dylan. So the legend Bob Dylan, who really inspired me to make more acoustic music, lyric based music. So Bob Dylan. Another hero of mine, Miles, of course, the legendary Miles. Then this is another book that I haven't really finished reading much. To be honest, I haven't read it much, but I know it's very deep because it says in the title, it's deep blues. Gets into a lot of rural folk, Robert Johnson country blues and the Mississippi Delta story, as well as getting into the prehistory, like African roots, stuff like that. And I think I've read that chapter, which really talks about the prehistory and the really early history of the blues. Zakir Hussain, the legend of Indian music. And it's like an interview format read. I think it is probably one of the best biography style books. It's more of an interview, not really you could say it's an autobiography, because Zakir is being interviewed and he's talking to the interviewee, but it's a really beautiful read. Of course, I also like fiction, and one of my favorite fiction authors is Paulo Coelho. I have read a lot of his books, probably most of his books, and I have most of them back in Darjeeling. I only have a few here, and this is one of them that I still have here. The Witch of Portobello. I think this was something I read much more recently, in the past year or so. So definitely Paulo Coelho, one of my favorite authors. And of course, the literary legend of Nepali literature, Lakshmi Prasad Devkota, and his famous epic Muna Madan. It's something I've read, I think, 2 or 3 times over, and it's always gotten to me. It's one of the best stories ever. So much so that I even have an English translation of it. So that's Muna Madan by Lakshmi Prasad Devkota. Of course, there is a lot more in that rack over there. A lot more fiction, some more Paulo Coelho's, some more Nepali literature. There's other good stuff in there, but if I showed you all of them, it would probably take a full day. So let's head on over to more gear. Let's now talk about guitarist's favorite thing in the world, pedals. So this is the very first individual Storm box I got. This is a Boss Blues driver. Beautiful drive, works really well with, not really blues actually, but works really well with more heavier styles of music like grunge and more heavy rock. Then the second drive pedal I got was this Tube Screamer Mini, the best pedal in the world. I started with using software emulations of this on my computer, but then when I got the chance to get a real one, I did get the real one. The third pedal is almost the same as the Tube Screamer, has a very similar sound. This is the Marshall Blues Breaker, the sound which Clapton got on the Blues Breaker album, the Beanie album. Besides that, I also have a looper which is from Q-Wave, I believe. Q-Wave looper, and I think this was my second pedal ever. So this is the first multi-effects pedal I got. It sounded beautiful, like it had like 40 different sounds, as well as places where I could store my own presets, and I made a lot of them. I remember I had like 5 go-to sounds that were like a drive, and one clean sound with a lot of reverb, one very clean sound, and one of a more high gain sound. And then I had like some more weird sounds like octaved up and like lots of slow attack and stuff like that. So this was the pedal that I used for quite a lot of years. Almost, I think it was still working in 2022, but then one day it just stopped turning on. I've just stored it as more like a memory piece. But then I was nostalgic for it, so I did get something similar to that, which is this. The first one, this one was the Zoom G1, and this one is called the Zoom G1XNEXT, and it's also got a expression pedal. I think the tones are different from the first one, but similar tones, and most of the effects are the same. In my childhood, I actually had a harmonica. It was more of a chromatic harmonica with a switch at the side to change semitones. I think I lost it and I didn't really like it, but I always wanted a blues-based harmonica. So this is the first harmonica that I got, still in Shantiniketan, and it was back then a pretty rare find to find a blues-style harmonica. This is the Honor Puck. It's pretty small. It's very much fits in any pocket, and I think it has a beautiful sound. Later on, I wanted to play in other keys as well, especially wanted to play in E, but in blues you usually play cross harp, so I got an A harmonica, which is a Honor Silver Star, but then I use it cross so that I can play in the guitarist's favorite key, which is E. Finally, I did realize I do need another C regular size blues harmonica, so I got this E-stop harmonica, which is in C. When I play it cross, it goes into G. So this is my full-size C harp. Now I've also got a lot of little percussion and some stuff. This is an egg shaker. Now I only needed one, but I got a pair, so I decided to leave one back in Darjeeling. You don't need 2 of these. I've got these couple bells which I got in Shantiniketan, I think along with those bowel instruments. I've got this maraca, also got a pair of drumsticks. Then I've got this kazoo which I got as a gift. This one is from Vietnam. When my friend and collaborator Hishe Bhutia, he went to Vietnam, he got this bird flute for me. And then I've got some of these whistles. I've got 3 of them. I think I had more back in Shantiniketan, but now I've still got 3 of them. Another gift that I got is this thumb piano or kalimba. This is a Radel tabla machine, and I got this first for my sitar practices back in college. At that time, I just thought this was a pretty stupid tool just for practice, but then now that I'm getting into more dollar setups, I'm really beginning to understand the power of this simple machine, where it literally becomes a drum machine and I can put effects on it, and this is a thing of hidden beauty that I have always had with me. Next up, let's talk about keyboards. Now this is the very first instrument that I ever got, and I was probably under 10 or just 10 years old, something like that. I got this Casio SA5. My parents bought it, of course, but It was through some lottery or something. They won it at some lottery, and this was my first foray into music. So it still works. Some of the functions don't work, but it still works, and I love this thing. I've had it for 2/3 of my life. After that, I got its bigger brother, the Casio SA35, which is in the other room right now. So I'm not gonna go and get it. Maybe Doc will put some pictures. It was the exact same version except in a bigger size and more polyphony. But then I wanted to get more Casios. So this is the next Casio that I got, which is a PT20, and it's got some very omnichord-like features with these chord buttons. And I believe this is monophonic, or is it duophonic? But doesn't have a lot of polyphony, but I think it's also got some rhythms that kind of relate with the chords. The rhythms play along with the chords, so it's like it's having an auto strummer. Then finally I got this Casio SA1, which is the very first of the SA series. I think this one may actually be monophonic or duophonic max, the most recent Casio that I have had, and I love Casio brand. I also got one Yamaha toy keyboard for my mom, which is back in Darjeeling, but that plays as a beauty as well. I've also had since my childhood a harmonium, which is where I learned my initial Indian classical vocal lessons. The first amplifier that I got was a Max Tone amplifier. I got it along with my P-Way guitar, and it worked for quite a few years. It had a lovely sound, had a really nice overdrive, had some basic EQs, but I used it for quite a few years until it eventually got worse and stopped working completely. I think we eventually had to throw it out because it was pretty useless. But the second amp I got was a Line 6 Spider 4, and that is another beauty. Like, people who say it sucks, they are the ones who suck. It's got a lovely blues sound, it's got a lovely clean sound, and I think it has some drive. It has 6 channels. I remember I never went to the more insane stuff. That's not my thing, but the blues sound, the crunch sound, I think that is what it's called, and the clean sound, that is lovely. Now I've given it to my brother. After I came to Bangalore, I kind of pretty much started using software amps, but I did want an amplifier, so I did get this mini Marshall MS2. Marshall, of course, another big brand that I've always been fascinated with. So it's got a lovely drive sound and a decent enough clean sound, and it works if I want to just play some guitar without using my computer. I also got this amp, which I actually don't use for my guitar, even though it is a guitar amplifier. I believe this is a Juarez JR amp something, but I actually use it more as a keyboard amp when I'm using my Dolus setup and for Koala sampler and stuff like that. So I use it more like a speaker. Now over there on this showcase over there, I've got some stuff that are kind of spoiled. You can see my zoom pedal is there as well. There's a zoom recorder, a loop station, but I've also got some special things that I'd like to show you. Firstly, these are a couple stuff that I was gifted by my mom, and this is a small cello, and this got a saxophone inside over here. Then an elephant. This is the track list from my first album, Small Town Boy. Check it out on Apple Music and Bandcamp and other streaming platforms. This is a poster from our introvert gig back in 2018, and this is a wolf mask. On this showcase, I've got a lot of amazing and precious stuff. Firstly, a Thin Lizzy badge, and then I've got a fiddle. I've got a tuning fork here, a manjira, and a Tibetan singing bowl. This was what we used on the I.M. song 8 March. Firstly, a couple more gifts from Vietnam that my friend gave me. This is a nose flute, and this is a danmoy, which is a jaw harp. I've got some Nepali instruments. This is a madal, which is a two-headed drum used in Nepali music. Then I've also got here a Nepali sarangi, which is different from the Indian sarangi, but it's a beautiful fiddle which is played upright by the Gandharva musicians. This is a Nepali jaw harp called the Marchunga, but I don't have just one. I have 9 of them. Each of them are in different keys and have got slightly different tonalities. A couple of them are made of brass, whereas most of the others are made of the OG, the iron jaw harp. But speaking of Nepali jaw harps, there is also one that is so precious and you can't even buy it. This one is the Binayo made of bamboo. It used to have a string attached, but now it doesn't have it anymore. So I just play it without the string, just by doing this. Speaking of precious instruments that you can't buy even with money, I've got some Karbi instruments. First up is this fiddle called the Kumlieng. It's supposed to be played with a bow, somewhat like this. Nextly is this lute called the Kumdengdong. Both of these are Karbi instruments and was made by a rural luthier who has sadly since passed away, but these were some of his final works. Couple more Karbi instruments. This is their jaw harp called the Krongchui. Now this is something that I really love and is on my main desk at all times. This is the Stylophone Gen X1. I know there's a Gen X2, maybe I'll be getting that soon, but this is something that is so beautiful, played by David Bowie. So, Stylophone. I've also got a cajon there, which it's too heavy to lift, so maybe Doc will put some pictures over here. And then I've also got some stuff back in Darjeeling. I mentioned the guitar, and I've got some percussion. I've got a MIDI keyboard, and I've also have my acoustic sitar back in Darjeeling. I also have one sitar in the other room, but that one is a lot more damaged, and few other stuff in Darjeeling. Yes, so that was all the instruments I have ever had. But yeah, and if you were wondering why I didn't show my guitars, that's because I already showed all of them in my previous video. Watch that over here. You lucky bastards.